Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
We are at an all-time record across the province. Ontario's average now close to $1.46, and we had never crossed that $1.40 a liter mark up until this past September.
You know, if we all work together, it's possible to save these wonderful buildings and make them better than they were before.
What we need to do is have a combination of things to make sure that the general public take away some of the needs that these rodents have to have, which is, again, food source.
Thanks for joining us. I want to begin tonight on a personal note. While many of you have seen me hosting for the past several weeks, starting today, I can say that I get to continue doing this as your official host for CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm, of course, taking over the role from Chris Ensing, who is still with CBC Windsor and who you'll continue to see here on the air. I'm grateful to take this on, and I look forward to being with you every evening, bringing you the news that matters most to our community. So on that note, we begin tonight with rising gas prices, a money matter that's hitting almost all of us. It's hitting delivery drivers, cab drivers, and rideshare operators particularly hard. When gas prices go up, in many cases, it comes out of their pockets and eats away at profits. The CBC's Jason Vio joins us live now with more. Jason, how are drivers coping with these high gas prices?
Well, Katerina, I spoke with one local Uber driver who says some days, because of the high gas prices that we're seeing, it feels like he's not making any money. And what we're seeing here in Windsor, $1.45.5 per liter tonight, for example, these are record high gas prices. Before September, just a couple of months ago, it never has risen above $1.40 per liter. And even before that, the highest it was on record was $1.38 per liter back in 2014. And those who drive people around or deliver food say they don't make more when gas prices spike. It's an added expense on top of insurance and maintenance and other fees. One Uber driver says if he's in Windsor and needs to pick up someone in LaSalle, for example, he doesn't get paid for the 20 minutes it takes to reach his customer.
So Uber will request me to drive 20 minutes for him without knowing how much I make. After I pick him up, imagine if he's only traveling like 5 to 6 minutes away, which will cost him only $5. That means I'm driving like 25 minutes to 30 minutes for only $5 to $6, which is not only I'm not making money.
There's no way around it, and you have to pay it. It's just very unfortunate because we are independent contractors. With the cost of insurance, maintenance, and now gas, we're taking a real hit. Yesterday, for example, we did an order from Kebabji and Tecumseh, and it went out to Tilbury, 45 kilometers. That's a lot of fuel.
So Jason, why is it that gas prices are hitting these record highs?
Well, Katerina, the price of oil always plays a role when we see higher gas prices, but it goes far beyond that. Analysts with Gas Buddy say demand is up while supply is kind of lagging behind. And another reason why Canadians are seeing record high gas prices compared to our American neighbors, for example, is they say that has a lot to do with the weaker Canadian dollar.
Prices are globally traded in U.S. dollars. So that is kind of the biggest factor that's driving Canadian prices up about 25 cents a liter. If there was more parity between the Canadian and U.S. dollar, prices would be as much as 25 cents a liter lower than where they stand today.
So I guess another big question would be, when will these gas prices start to fall again? Well, they predict not for another month or two, and he's predicting late winter, early spring is when production may pick back up again, enough so that we'll see gas prices here begin to fall.
And definitely something many of us are keeping a close eye on. Thanks for this, Jason. The CBC's Jason Vio live tonight. Windsor Regional Hospital's Olette campus is dealing with a COVID-19 outbreak, this time on the 4th floor medical unit. The hospital says the outbreak has affected fewer than 5 patients. It was identified during routine screening. Admissions to the unit continue, but no visitors will be allowed inside. Exceptions can be made for palliative patients as long as visitors are compliant with PPE. Like many other communities, the town of Tecumseh is dealing with a rat problem. They're seeing an uptick in complaints about the rodents in residential areas. Officials are now in the process of weighing their options: education, a subsidy system to encourage residents to take action, or focus on hard-hit areas. But one thing is for sure, the mayor says it needs to be a team effort.
It shouldn't be just a responsibility of Town Hall. We all have a responsibility to do many things to help eliminate, the rodent population. Big one is food source, and food source comes from many places. Bird feeders, leaving food out for stray cats, or even your own animals itself. Composting. Large wood piles. And a great example, I had a neighbor in my backyard with about 7 or 8 bird feeders, and lo and behold, I found the holes in the burrows, within my own property and that. And so I took some measures. I put, rat walls onto my deck so they couldn't get underneath. And plus I had a conversation with my neighbor. And come to realize, they said, oh, you're right, we do have rodent population, and eliminated the food source. And so they moved on to other areas. We're trying to find at least some common ground where we can at least abate the rodent population. Can we eradicate it completely? No. But if we can keep it under control, that I think is the aim, and that's what I think the citizens really want.
A Windsor high school was locked down for a short period of time around noon today. The public school board says there was a report of a possible risk to students and staff at Vincent Massey High School. A nearby elementary school was placed on a hold and secure as well. The board says they followed their emergency procedures. Windsor police investigated the situation, concluding there was no risk to safety in the school. The board did not say what triggered the lockdown, saying only that it was an internal incident. The lockdown lasted about half an hour. It's been years since veteran Karen Sutcliffe served in the military, but some memories of that time remain sharp in her mind. Sutcliffe says the day she enlisted, October 5th, 1971, was the proudest day of her life. Today, she lives in Windsor with her service dog, Bailey, who wears a vest decorated with all the badges Sutcliffe earned during her service. With Remembrance Day just a day away, she recalls her toughest day on the job, when she had to deal with the aftermath of the FLQ crisis in 1971.
I had to be out on the line with a rifle, potentially to kill some of my fellow citizens. Luckily, I didn't have to, but it was a potential. All these flashes that Bailey is wearing were what I wore when I was in the military.
Sutcliffe served in the Cold War. She enlisted back in the early 1970s, days away from her 17th birthday. Heritage advocates in Morpeth say Chatham-Kent Council could have done more to protect an historic church from being destroyed. It recently approved the owner's request to remove the former St. John's Anglican Church from the Heritage Register. The building dates back to 1877, and its last religious service happened 40 years ago. CBC Windsor's Jacob Barker reports.
The stained glass windows, as you can see, have already been removed.
Signs this 144-year-old Anglican church is already being stripped down.
I think it's a very sad decision. It's not unusual, unfortunately.
Built in 1877, it stands as a testament to days gone by in one of the most historic areas of tiny Morpeth.
Well, there are marriages, births, deaths, parties, meetings, all sorts of things that gather and are at the heart of these churches.
In a submission accepted by council, the owner says he intends to bring the church down and put a monument in place.
What I would like to see with heritage buildings that come up for designation is that as part of the designation that there be a conservation plan put into place which would help and encourage owners to maintain and repair and work towards the long-term viability of the buildings.
This isn't uncommon, though. Other churches in the area have faced a similar fate. The National Trust says thousands of churches and other religious buildings are at risk of being demolished around the country.
Statistically, people are attending less services, people are identify less with different religious organizations. So the buildings that they previously supported are not having the income that they used to. So congregations are facing tough decisions on the future of their buildings.
The church was consecrated years ago and was owned privately. Pajot says in cases like that, it isn't as common that churches are destroyed.
Oftentimes the people that are going to buy a building like that truly love that building and do put it to good use and care for them.
But local heritage advocates say it didn't have to go this way. Just up the road from the old Anglican church is this United Church, which was built in the exact same year. The owners here have found an original use to keep the church standing.
It's 2 bedrooms and then, a couple of cozy chatting areas.
Here, an Airbnb built on the ground floor is being booked a year in advance. Work done slowly inside and out over time.
You just pick away at it and take, projects little by little. And, years ago, a lot of these small communities, the property values were very low, and you could say, well, you're just throwing good money after bad. But today, the way property prices have gone, it's worth spending a couple of $100,000 on these places because you're going to get that back twofold.
CBC called the municipality of Chatham-Kent to speak with someone on council or the Heritage Committee about the decision, but those calls were not returned. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Morpeth.
Now, we want to tell you that late this afternoon, CBC reached Harold Dyke, who owns the old church. He says he changed his mind about demolishing the building after hearing from community members about what the building means to them. He says he's going to try and figure out the cost to repair it and will then speak with community members about how they might want to see the property used. As the weather grows colder across the country, life is moving back indoors. And with that, new questions about the risks of COVID-19 infection, with the Delta variant still circulating. Experts believe that thanks to the mass vaccination campaign, this coming winter will likely be different. Here's Christine Birak with a look at how to gauge the risks.
No one wants another COVID winter, but it's coming. And doctors say this one will be trickier. Not everyone is vaccinated. Delta is far more contagious than the original virus, and indoor air is riskier than anyone had thought last winter.
This whole pandemic has turned aerosol science on its head.
Scientists say people can release tiny infected particles while talking or just breathing. They can travel farther than 2 meters and linger in the air for hours. Good ventilation can suck them out. However, it's hard to know if a space is well ventilated, but there are clues.
This is carbon dioxide data.
Jeffrey Siegel is an air quality expert. He's been monitoring the carbon dioxide that people exhale in various spaces.
And you can see as people come into the office in the morning, there's these big spikes.
The gas builds up in indoor spaces that are not well ventilated. Those steep drops are key.
Because that tells us what the ventilation system is doing to remove the carbon dioxide and the other things that people are breathing out in the space.
Things like the virus. The U.S. CDC notes one potential target benchmark for good ventilation is carbon dioxide readings below 800 parts per million.
Out here in the fresh air, the carbon detector is in the 300s because it's fresh air. But as we go inside, it'll pick up more carbon as more people are breathing, which means there could be more virus in the air.
Not scientific, but we took a carbon dioxide monitor for a subway ride in Toronto. It climbed to over 700 with few riders on board. Small, busy restaurants can hit well over 8. We also checked out the entry gate to Scotiabank Arena ahead of a Leafs game. Over 700, but still well ventilated.
The biggest risk is probably not when you're sitting in the seat. It's when you're lining up for the concession stand or for the bathroom or you're jammed onto an escalator. Those are the highest risk spaces.
Closed, crowded spaces remain the riskiest infection spots. Experts say when we move indoors, we need layers of protection. Along with ventilation, we know that vaccines, masks, and physical distancing can prevent the spread of this virus.
In Europe, another wave of COVID cases and deaths is now surging, largely fueled by low vaccination rates, dropped measures, and pandemic fatigue. Experts insist as seasons change, immunity from vaccines could wane, and hard lessons learned should not be forgotten. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
A surprise announcement today from the world's two biggest carbon polluters at the COP26 summit in Glasgow. The U.S. and China have agreed to boost cooperation on climate action. The two countries say they'll work together to accelerate emission reductions. Chris Brown has the details.
Out of nowhere tonight came an announcement that appeared to catch everyone at the Glasgow summit by surprise. Adversaries China and the United States had struck their own climate deal. China spoke first. In the area of climate change, there is more agreement between China and the U.S. than divergence, said Xie Zhenhua, making it an area with huge potential for cooperation. As he left, chased by Chinese journalists and the Chinese flag, U.S. climate czar John Kerry took over.
The two largest economies in the world have agreed to work together to raise climate ambition.
Their joint declaration lays out a process to keep talking to each other. Among the key points, China is promising to work quickly to cut methane emissions, a major source of greenhouse gases, and they will hold their own bilateral climate summit next year. The U.S. and China have worked together on climate before, but that seemed to end here in Glasgow.
Not showing up? Come on.
When President Joe Biden chided China's leader for skipping the summit, but tonight's tone was different.
This declaration is a step that we can build on.
This had already been a day of drama with the summit's end approaching, with protesters decrying a lack of action from world leaders. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson arriving to personally try to shepherd a final communique through what promises to be a treacherous few days.
Will you help us grasp that opportunity, or will you stand in the way?
The first draft of the communique urged all nations, including China, to speed up efforts to stop burning coal and to phase out subsidies for fossil fuels. Not specific enough for many in Europe, but too specific, it appears, for big oil producers. Chris Brown, CBC News, Glasgow.
Let's take a live look outside there. I hope you got to enjoy some of that sunshine that we had, because I took a peek at the forecast and we do have showers for the rest of the week, chance of showers each day. And then I even spotted a chance of flurries for the weekend. So Colette Kennedy will be here right after the break. She'll give us the full weather breakdown. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, I did take a peek at Environment Canada's website before the show, and it did not look great for the week, so I need you to talk us through this.
Yes, I know. We were talking about, Katerina and I were talking the break about a few times when we could get into some flurries, so I'm going to try and break that down, and we'll try and ease everyone into it, especially because of the spike we're likely to see in the temperature tomorrow before things dive for the weekend. Now, these are the current temperatures. Again, when you've got the sun setting, when it doesn't take long, and your temperatures are really starting to drop off. I want to show you the current winds. I know they're not that interesting, but there's a reason I'm showing you these, is because they're going to be changing quite dramatically. So overnight tonight and tomorrow, we're going to find those winds picking up, and then by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, some of those gusts exceeding 60 kilometers an hour. So here's some of the cloud deck that has been pushing in. So that's kind of the first feature to be dealing with, but a lot of that's been the higher thin cloud. Well, we're going to see a little bit more kind of building in with this through the day tomorrow. It'll be somewhat variable, meaning at times you get more sunny breaks and other times it feels overcast. This is really important, holding off that rain until later in the afternoon. So an isolated shower isn't out of the question for some of our Remembrance Day services tomorrow, but I think it'll primarily be dry, and it's just going to be the winds to contend with. So there comes the rain into the late afternoon and evening hours, so that's why I've held it off till late in the day. But we get some clearing behind that, and then some colder air starts to push in. So we'll actually find that temperature falling off through the day Friday. So that would be one point in our future where we have a chance for some flurries, and that's Friday night. Just giving you a look at some of those winds and the timelines here with this. So this is at 11 a.m. That could be a little bit tricky there with some of our services, and then carrying on, like I said, right on through to the afternoon and evening, and even picking up. Overnight tonight, you'll see those mild temperatures, and in fact, we'll see some of those readings dipping and then increasing with those numbers. Tomorrow, I think we're just going to get tagged by the warm sector. That's why I'm taking 18 degrees, 16, 17 Chatham, Kent, London, probably mid-teens there. So we'll see if that tracks just that way. The other chance, you'll see it there, end of the weekend, not all day rain, snow event, but just that there could be some mixed precipitation in there too.
All right, not too bad. There might be some nice things in there.
Yeah, it's just a little hit and miss to kind of ease us into it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, some dinosaur fossils are breaking records. So we've got all the details right after the break. CBC's Andrew Brown reports some of them are breaking records.
So you can see it has this classic death pose posture, and that's very classic for well-preserved theropod dinosaurs. What sets this specimen apart as record-breaking is how complete it is.
At the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, curator Caleb Brown shows off an almost fully intact ornithomimid. It's now considered the most complete fossil of its kind by Guinness World Records.
It's mainly based on the skeleton, the quality of the preservation, and how many bones are preserved.
Guinness is recognizing 4 other fossils at the Royal Tyrrell, including the largest marine reptile in the world, the best preserved armored dinosaur, and one with the longest neck ever recorded.
An animal called Alberta nectes. This is from marine deposits near Lethbridge, and its claim to fame is that it has this gigantic neck. It has a neck that's composed of 76 vertebrae, 76 independent elements. We have 7, giraffes have 7. This has 10 times more than a giraffe.
Guinness adjudicator Michael Empress says having so many record-breaking fossils in one place is rare and significant.
It really kind of covers the spectrum in this specialty area of dinosaurs, which is really incredible.
3 of the fossils are on display at the museum right now. Andrew Brown, CBC News, Calgary.
An Ontario man is fighting fast fashion one shoe at a time. Regular sneakers can stick around in landfills for 1,000 years. He's created a biodegradable shoe that decomposes in just 3 years. And if you plant them underground, they'll eventually sprout an apple tree.
When you're done with the shoes and they're all beat up and you've had your wear, plant them in the ground, put them face up like this so that it's facing the sky. And then, you just cover them in about 6 to 8 inches of dirt and you're good to go.
It takes about a month for the shoes to start biodegrading, and in 18 months, they'll release the seed into the soil. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Now, as I wish you a lovely evening, I'll also send you off with a fun little video that our team put together here to get to know me a little bit better. Here are 5 things you might not know about me. I was actually born in Bulgaria and I speak the language, and the Bulgarian pronunciation of my name is Katerina Georgieva. I was a theater major during my undergrad studies and briefly considered a career in opera. I spent a chunk of my 20s living abroad, and I've traveled to more than 30 different countries. I've played piano for much of my life, and for short periods of time, I've also learned how to play the trumpet, the trombone, and the clarinet. And lastly, throughout the pandemic, I've taken up a new hobby like many of us have. I've started running, and you might spot me along this riverfront doing just that. Those are your 5 facts. Thanks so much for watching.